Welcome to Stock Talk with Mike. This is going to be a really quick video on Airbnb, ticker ABNB. I want to cover my position that I've been building out this past year in Airbnb. I've been slowly picking away, building that position up. And then I also want to touch on Q2 earnings. They just reported on Thursday, and the price action was pretty erratic, all over the place, and there was definitely a lot of conflicting reports out there. This one, for example, these are articles pushed to my newsfeed on Yahoo Finance. First one from Bloomberg. Airbnb tumbles after projecting decline in bookings on virus. And then right after that from Yahoo Finance, Airbnb climbs following Q2 earnings reports. And yeah, this is sort of the price action we saw when they reported. After hours on Thursday, it shot down around 4 or 5. I think I even saw it hit 5% down in after hours trading. Now remember, after hours trading is always more volatile. So you really don't want to trust that price action. Volume's a lot lower and the movements are a lot more erratic, and definitely movements can be extremely exacerbated. So you see immediately after that on Friday, it quickly recovered, then shot down to even lower than it traded to after hours, and then fully recovered, slowly made the long trek up on Friday back to above where it was before reporting earnings. So ultimately ending up on the week, probably a few percent or so. Oh, and just a reminder, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. It'd also be great if you could like this video. So I hold Airbnb in my growth portfolio, and I built that up to my second largest position. It's actually my second largest position, period, as I'm definitely more heavily invested in growth. These are some of my larger positions here. And Airbnb, I'm pretty happy with my position size right now. And I started buying shares back in January of 2021. And that was at around 167 a share. Bought some more in May, actually quite a bit in May, and then more back in July. I've definitely been picking away recently. Whenever I see it kind of hit around the mid 130s, definitely like that price. I've been buying a lot in that range. It's been kind of trading in a bit of a range down there, and it's allowed me to sort of accumulate a decent position size. You can see here when I first bought back in January 20th at $167 a share. If I put all my money in then, I'd be down significantly, but I put some of my capital to work in case it did continue to shoot up, so I was invested, but it gave me an opportunity here as it's kind of traded sideways and fits and starts, and allowed me to build up that position on any weakness. So from here, I wouldn't be looking to add unless we saw a significant further drop in Airbnb. So let's dive into Q2 earnings. They actually had a fantastic report, in my opinion. Now, obviously, Airbnb's faced some challenges with the pandemic. They were seeing definitely a decline in bookings, decline in revenue through a lot of 2020, and they've seen a pretty healthy recovery here as economies reopen and basically their hosts basically reopen for business, international travel returns, etc. So we've definitely seen a really positive recovery, even though there's still Airbnb is still voicing a lot of concerns about what the short-term future holds and that uncertainty. But honestly, any weakness on pandemic-related weakness in revenue, I think, is a buying opportunity, because I do think it's going to be a relatively short-term pain. So I'd like to take advantage of any of these opportunities. And this is one of those recovery plays in a way that I think their business is going to boom coming out of the backside of the pandemic, that has actually been able to perform reasonably well through the pandemic as well. So nights and experience booked. So looking at their bookings, Airbnb business has continued to be highly resilient with Q2 2021. Nights and experiences booked nearly recovering to the same period pre-COVID levels, Q2 of 2019. So the 2020 comps that companies would normally be using are incredibly weak for Airbnb. So they've also, in their shareholder letter, also looked back as far as 2019 when life was normal, kind of comparing to those numbers to get a better reflection of some of the growth and where they are at in the recovery. So I really like that they've taken the time to do that. But just looking year over year, that 83.1 million in bookings is up 197% year over year. And over 2 years, 2019 levels, it's only 1% lower or off. So basically totally recovered those bookings to 2019 levels, which is really good to see. Gross booking value also up significantly, 320% year over year. But what I want to get into is revenue. Revenue was up nearly 300% year over year, so 299% from Q2 2020. And it actually surpassed Q2 of 2019 levels by 10%. So definitely really good trajectory here, really good recovery. And obviously I think these numbers would be substantially higher if we weren't facing COVID right now. So their net loss too was also actually really impressive. Q2 2021 net loss was significantly improved from the same period prior. It was only a loss of 68 million. And in Q2 of 2020, that was a loss of 575 million. So pretty impressive stuff there. Definitely heading in the right direction. And they were actually profitable on adjusted EBITDA basis in Q2 of 2021. It was 217 million in Q2 of 2021, which was a huge improvement of the negative 397 million Q2 of 2020, and even the negative 43 million of Q2 2019. So nice to see that number headed in the right direction. They also gave a little bit of an outlook, and this is actually one reason why we saw the sharp initial sell-off. They don't mention the letter, but on the call, they talked about expecting weak bookings next quarter, and that I think might have spooked some investors. But at the same time, they did go on to say that while the COVID pandemic created ongoing uncertainty for our future results, we expect Q3 2021 revenue to be our strongest quarter revenue on record and to deliver the highest adjusted EBITDA dollars and margin ever. So that means we're going to be having earnings heading in the right direction, best quarter ever they're anticipating, and the strongest revenue numbers ever. So I think that is extremely bullish when you think of how some of these hotels are doing right now and their struggles during the pandemic. Airbnb has a pretty asset-light model. I show these quite often. These are the 13F filings for Airbnb. So as I mentioned before, any large money managers or hedge funds have to report their buys and sells on a quarterly basis through a 13F filing. And these are looking backwards. So, last quarter always. So the info is a little bit dated. And of course, these funds could have sold out by the time we get to the recording of this video. But it really kind of gives you a snapshot of what big money managers are doing. So in Q1, as we're seeing some suppressed levels at that time in Airbnb, we saw funds holding Airbnb climb to 571. In the quarter prior, that was only 392. So there's a big accumulation going on here. This is one of the bigger jumps I've seen in a while. And the percent ownership by institutions has gone from only 13% the quarter prior up to 66%. So that's a huge increase. Be really interested to see what happens with Q2 13F filings here and seeing if that trajectory continues. But that's a pretty bullish sign, seeing big money managers dumping money into Airbnb here. And as far as price targets, there's 20 analysts currently covering Airbnb, so it's got pretty good coverage. And the average price target is $179.80 a share, currently trading at $152. That's around 18% upside from today's levels. So that's pretty good value there, at least from what these analyst expectations are for the next 12 months. The high on the street is actually a price target of 219%, while the low is 125. But interestingly, of the 20 analysts covering, 13 are a buy, 7 holds. There's no sells on Airbnb. I like Airbnb as a travel experiential play. It's probably my favorite in that space. And I really like the high revenue growth we're seeing. One of my biggest concerns is that market penetration, that saturation, and if they can continue this massive growth. I do think there's still a lot of disruption here, and we're still in the early days for adoption of Airbnb, but it'll be interesting to see if that growth sort of plateaus and what they look like as they focus more of their efforts towards profitability. But I do think this is a company that will be a much, much larger market cap again in 5-10 years from now. And this is definitely a long-term hold for me. So that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and happy investing.